In the year 1487, the air above Tenochtitlan shimmered with the heat of countless fires. The causeways leading to the island capital were crowded with captives, men from conquered provinces, paraded before the crowds, stumbling beneath the shadow of the great temple, with ropes threaded through their pierced noses. For 4 days and nights, the Aztecs are said to have sacrificed between 4 and 20,000 prisoners of war, marking the reconsecration of their holiest site, the Templo Mayor. Some Spanish chroniclers claimed even higher numbers, but modern historians tend to view those figures as exaggerations. Whatever the total, the event remains one of the most infamous spectacles of the pre-Columbian world. To the eyes of the Europeans who would later record it, the event was an act of madness, barbaric, incomprehensible. But to the Aztecs themselves, it wasn't chaos. It was a ceremony. It was duty. It was the price of the sun. And to grasp their world, one must first understand not why they sacrificed, but how. At the summit of the stepped pyramid, smoke rose from censers of burning copal resin. Shell trumpets screamed through the air. Drums boomed like thunder. One by one, the condemned were led upward, climbing toward the gods. At the platform's center lay a smooth stone slab, slick and sticky with blood. Here, 4 priests grabbed the victim's limbs, while a 5th, the high priests of Huitzilopochtli, god of war, lifted an obsidian blade. With one swift motion, he plunged it into the man's chest. The priest's hands vanished into the wound. Then, re-emerging holding the still beating heart, raised high so the sun might see its offering. It was then burned, placed in a stone vessel, or consumed by the priesthood in an act of sacred communion. The body was sometimes flayed, decapitated, and thrown down the pyramid steps. Its head placed upon a tzompatli, a rack of skulls that testified to divine power. According to some Spanish accounts, the remains were later given to animals in the emperor's menagerie, though archaeological evidence for this practice is uncertain. Every detail was calculated, every movement had purpose. The Aztecs believed that the spilling of blood nourished the cosmos, preventing the universe itself from collapsing into darkness. Not all sacrifices were swift. For Hipetotec, the flayed one, the ritual was an elaborate pageant of death and renewal. 40 days before the ceremony, a chosen man lived as the god's double, draped in gold and bright spoonbill feathers, paraded through the streets, honored as divine. Then, on the festival day of Tlacahipe-Hualitzli, he was tied to a stone platform, armed with a feathered club incapable of harming anyone, and forced to fight elite warriors armed with obsidian blades. They cut him down in a ritual duel that symbolized the sprouting of crops. When he fell, his skin was peeled away, a symbolic husk, and worn by priests for 20 days, mirroring the shedding of maize to reveal new life. To honor Mixcoatl, god of the hunt, the victim was tied to a wooden frame and transformed into living prey. Warriors fired arrows until his heart was pierced, ensuring success in the hunt. And in the most solemn rite of all, the new fire ceremony, held every 52 years when the Aztec calendar completed its cycle, every flame in the empire was extinguished. The world waited in darkness, while priests on a sacred hill opened the chest of a man and lit a new fire in his heart. From this flame, torches spread across the empire, rekindling creation itself. Every cut, every scream was a prayer. To outsiders, this was barbaric. To the Aztecs, it was balance, the repayment of cosmic debt. In their mythology, the world began with the tearing apart of the primordial monster Zipactli, whose body transformed into the earth, sky, and mountains. Her spirit demanded recompense, and the gods promised her blood. Humanity itself was born from transgression. The wind god Ehecatl, a form of Quetzalcoatl, stole the bones of ancient beings from the underworld to create humankind. Human sacrifice was thus atonement, a moral repayment for existence itself. Sacrifice wasn't cruelty, it was maintenance of order. Without the blood of humans, the gods would weaken, the sun would falter, and the cosmos would collapse. Each drop spilled on the altars of Tenochtitlan was believed to keep the universe turning. The heart wasn't merely flesh, it was the fuel of creation. In Aztec belief, to be chosen as a sacrifice was a privilege, a direct path to communion with the gods. Most victims were captives from the Flowery Wars, ritualized battles fought not to destroy the enemy but to take prisoners. Aztec armies advanced like living banners, scouts in front, warrior priests bearing the image of Huitzilopochtli in the center, and elite fighters wielding obsidian-edged clubs designed to wound rather than kill. Those captured were bound, decorated with feathers, and brought back to Tenochtitlan as living offerings. Xochitl, Wars of Flowers. There were other paths to the altar. In the sacred ball courts, teams competed to drive a heavy rubber ball through stone rings using only their hips, knees, and elbows. For the losers, death awaited. The team captain, and sometimes his entire team, could be sacrificed to restore divine favor. Even slaves might be offered, chosen by their masters to accompany them into the afterlife or as repayment for good fortune in business. The most devout offerings were the god impersonators, men selected to embody deities like Tezcatlipoca or Hipetotec. In certain ceremonies, they lived as divine figures for a year, adorned with jewels, taught songs, given wives, and worshipped by all. When their time came, they walked willingly to the altar, completing the cycle of imitation and devotion. And sometimes even children were offered. Some sources indicate that the tears of the young were sacred to Tlaloc, the rain god, and that priests sought them to ensure rainfall. According to a few accounts, children were made to cry before sacrifice, so their tears might summon the rains. Though such reports may partly reflect Spanish interpretation of the rites, no one was entirely beyond the reach of divine hunger. Despite their grim reputation, the Aztecs didn't limit sacrifice to humans. Animals too were offered: jaguars, eagles, deer, snake, butterflies, and even shellfish, each chosen for its symbolic link to a particular god. There were also non-lethal forms of sacrifice. Priests and nobles practiced auto-sacrifice, drawing their own blood from ears, tongues, or legs with sharp bones or maguey thorns, and burning it on strips of paper. The rising smoke was believed to carry their essence to the heavens. Others buried food, jade or shells, or crafted dough effigies of the gods from amaranth and honey mixed with a drop of human blood. These edible idols were burned or consumed in ceremonies that blurred the line between worship and sustenance. Every act, from the grandest public execution to a single drop of blood, formed part of a cosmic contract binding mortals to the divine. By the time of the Spanish arrival, the Aztec Empire had perfected sacrifice into spectacle. The great ceremonial precinct of Tenochtitlan was a city within a city, vast temples, shrines, and courtyards designed to channel awe and fear. When the drums began, the city moved as one. Crowds assembled before the pyramids, tens of thousands watching as victims climbed them in a solemn procession. The smell of blood mixed with incense. The air trembled with chanting. Spanish witnesses would later claim that the Templo Mayor's steps ran slick with gore, rivers of blood flowing into the streets below. Such descriptions were likely embellished, yet even reduced to their probable scale, the rituals were astonishing in scope and discipline. The logic of the Aztecs' faith was cyclical. The gods had given their own blood to create humanity. Humanity must return the favor to sustain the gods. To stop was to die. To deny the gods was to doom the world. So long as hearts beat upon their altars, the heavens would continue to move. The sun would rise, the rains would fall, maize would grow. And though the cost was immense, some scholars have estimated that at its height, the Aztec Empire may have offered up as many as 200 to 250,000 lives in a year. Though the true figure remains uncertain and fiercely debated, the Aztecs believed it was a small price to pay for cosmic survival. Within the temple walls, the cries of the condemned mingled with music, drums, and prayer. To modern ears, it is a vision of unimaginable cruelty. But in Tenochtitlan, it was the rhythm of the universe itself, a pact between mortals and gods, sealed in crimson. When the final heart was raised to the sun, the high priest's hands trembling with exhaustion and glory, the crowd erupted in praise. They believed that through this blood, the world would endure another day. And for a time, it did.